As you all know, police are always honest with their suspects.
Honesty's the only thing that'll set you free.
I'm your friend right now. We're in your corner.
Okay, maybe not so much at all. Many think the right to remain silent protects you in jail, but not always. Enter what's infamously known as the Perkins Operation. This is where the suspect's cellmate may be an undercover cop or an informant. That's what may have recently happened to Jake Haro.
There was a Perkins operation involving Jake Haro. They got information, the detectives, that Jake Haro had killed baby Emmanuel,
who possibly confessed to killing his infant son without realizing he was talking to law enforcement. So how does this sneaky tactic work, and what's the psychology behind it? Now, let's get started. The origin of this tactic stems from the landmark 1990 U.S. Supreme Court case, Illinois vs. Perkins. In this case, a suspect named Lloyd Perkins was incarcerated on an unrelated charge. Since law enforcement believed he was involved in a separate homicide, they placed an undercover officer in his cell posing as another inmate. The undercover officer struck up a conversation with Perkins, eventually gaining his trust. During their time together, Perkins confessed to the murder, believing he was talking privately to a fellow prisoner. The question before the U.S. Supreme Court was whether his Miranda rights had been violated. The U.S. Supreme Court ultimately ruled that they had not. It's a little bit of a loophole since Perkins was unaware he was speaking to law enforcement. The coercive environment Miranda warnings were designed to neutralize did not exist, and therefore his incriminating statement was admissible in court. From a forensic psychology standpoint, this tactic is fascinating because it deliberately bypasses the traditional interrogation constraints by exploiting social and environmental dynamics. Instead of invoking pressure through formal questioning, the Perkins operation relies on rapport building, mimicry of inmate behavior, and social engineering.
I had some minor words with a guard yesterday. Can't remember the guy's name, but he was just busting my balls.
About what?
Nothing.
It's not nothing. James, come on. It's me.
It was about you, Larry.
Oh, why would some guard talk about me?
It draws heavily on the principles of applied social psychology, especially the psychological vulnerabilities of suspects in custody.
He said, "You're a killer." So, what did you do?
Those who are incarcerated are often in heightened emotional states, unsure of who they can trust and longing for some sense of normalcy or connection.
Yeah, I've been in and out since I was 13.
The fake cellmate, who's often an officer, provides that illusion, creating a context in which the suspect may let their guard down. In many ways, the psychological mechanism behind a successful Perkins operation mirror those of someone falsely building trust with another person.
No woman will ever just talk to me.
This is very much the non-interrogation room version of playing your friend. Sometimes the most disarming tactic isn't aggression, it's kindness. Interrogators will often play the role of a friend. They'll empathize, they'll share personal stories, they'll act like they're on your side.
I'm your friend right now. But I gotta believe in you. And if I don't believe in you, I can't go to bat for you.
This false rapport builds emotional trust and makes the suspect feel seen, heard, and even understood. They may offer you food.
Would you like to have a sandwich or anything?
Sandwich or anything? Want something to eat?
We got some food up here, sandwich or anything.
Did you want a sandwich?
If you didn't see my recent video on interrogation manipulation, you can watch it after this one. The link is in the description below. The undercover agent establishes a shared identity with the suspect, often through storytelling, mutual complaints about the justice system, or displays of anti-authority sentiment. They create what is called in psychology as an in-group experience, which is an us versus them mentality. This perceived solidarity encourages disclosure. This phenomenon is closely tied to theories of cognitive dissonance and conformity, where the suspect aligns their behaviors and discloses to match those of their perceived peer group.
So I'm backing out the door, right? I got the TV like this.
In forensic psychology, this simulated peer dynamic taps into basic human needs of belonging, validation, and the desire to be understood.
Freeze, kid. Hands in the air. You hear what I said, boy? I say, yes, sir. I sure did. But if I drop this And thing, you got me on destruction of property, too.
A common case is one where an undercover cop shares his cell with a man suspected of murder. The undercover officer pretends to have his own legal troubles and tells stories of past crimes, encouraging the suspect to one-up him. The suspect may thereby feel the need to show he was tougher, more experienced, or more justified in his actions. And of course, the officer is often wired with a recording device. You may wonder why, if this works so well, why don't police use it more often? Well, it's because good lawyers will often warn their client about this tactic, rendering it mostly useless. However, if a suspect didn't get to talk with a lawyer yet, they may not have been warned of this trick, and why prisoners often claim innocence in prison, which we all know from watching Schaik.
Everybody in here is innocent. Hey, what you in here for?
Didn't do it.
You don't understand. I'm not supposed to be here.
Open that cell.
Critics argue that this tactic preys on the vulnerable, and this is where the ethical dimensions of forensic psychology come into play. While the courts have ruled that these statements are admissible, some psychologists have raised concerns of the authenticity of confessions obtained under false pretenses. What's also a little messed up about this tactic is that it's a one-way street where if you say something to an undercover cop that may indicate you're innocent, they will completely ignore that for the case, but will only report what you said if it incriminates you. There's also the risk of what is known as the compliant false confession. This is where the suspect may confess to acts they did not commit because they believe doing so will curry favor with a powerful peer, avoid threats that are real or even perceived, or out of sheer psychological exhaustion. The stress of incarceration can create a condition known as captivity fatigue, where normal decision making becomes impaired. In this state, the social validation provided by an undercover agent posing as an ally can feel like a lifeline. Also, those who are new to prison may want to appear tougher to fend off potential bullies and claim they are badder than they actually are. Another psychological concept relevant here is the illusion of transparency. Suspects often believe that their inner thoughts and guilt are visible to others, especially those who mirror their experiences or emotions. This can lead to over-disclosure when they feel understood or emotionally mirrored by the undercover cop or cellmate. It's a cognitive distortion, one that undercover cops are trained to amplify. They build rapport by sharing fabricated personal stories that mirror the suspect's own background, stories of troubled childhoods, strained relationships, substance use, or even regret over past crimes. This creates a sense of familiarity, making the suspect feel seen and understood. That emotional relatability causes the suspect to believe their own feelings are mutually visible, reinforcing the illusion that this guy just gets me, or the feeling of like recognizes like, and he knows I'm guilty anyway, so might as well just tell him.
Started twisting it like one of those, what do you call it?
Tourniquet.
Tourniquet, exactly.
Undercover operatives also use nonverbal cues and body language, nodding along with them, mirroring posture, maintaining warm eye contact, to further perception that they're emotionally aligned with them. This silent agreement through body language cues the suspect to keep sharing, believing that their cellmate, who's an operative, already knows what happened and is merely a confidant rather than an informant. In doing this, they create a false sense of psychological safety. The suspect lets their guard down because they assume transparency is mutual and inevitable, that hiding the truth is pointless because they know what happened. It was written all over their face. This cognitive distortion, when paired along with withdrawal, fear, or isolation, makes even seasoned criminals over-disclose, providing law enforcement with damning material without ever issuing a Miranda warning. If someone doesn't want to talk in an interrogation room without a lawyer, they may put him in a cell with an undercover cop and then get him to confess through a Perkins operation.
There's no change in my mind because I didn't do this.
Which is especially effective when they just haven't spoken to a lawyer yet, and the lawyer hasn't warned them of a Perkins operation. From the perspective of criminal profiling, the Perkins operation also allows law enforcement to assess how a suspect perceives their own actions. Forensic psychologists can analyze these informal disclosures for signs of remorse, grandiosity, rationalization, or callousness, all traits that feed into psychopathy assessments or risk evaluations. If a suspect describes their crime with pride, detail, or a lack of empathy, it provides insight into their personality structure and potential for recidivism.
Oh, then she started to cry.
Sometimes they do that. They thought they wanted it. but they changed their mind after the fact.
Oh no, she was crying.
These insights can be valuable for both prosecution and mental health professionals involved in sentencing or treatment planning. However, the tactic is not without failure. There have been cases where suspects shut down entirely or fabricate stories entirely to impress their new friend. In these instances, forensic evaluators must then assess whether the confession contains verifiable details or appears just confabulatory. There's also the risk of contamination, where law enforcement indirectly feeds details to the suspect via the undercover agent, which also complicates the entire case. Psychologically, suspects who are more narcissistic or antisocial in personality tend to be more susceptible to the Perkins Operation.
Get a new cellmate in, Elmo Blatch. Talked all the time, too. That's the other thing. He never shut up.
As you can imagine, these individuals view themselves as superior and may relish in the opportunity to brag or teach less experienced cellmates about how they got away with the crime.
Say, yeah, Elmo, who'd you kill? So he says,
I got me this job one time, bussing tables at a country club.
This need for admiration and control is a vulnerability that skilled undercover operatives exploit. And you guessed it, the undercover agent may pretend to idolize the suspect. And what do you think occurs from that? Yes, it triggers their desire to boast.
So I killed him. Him and this tasty he was with, some hotshot banker. And he's the one they pinned it on.
Interestingly, some of the most revealing confessions come not from direct questions, but from shared stories. The undercover operative might recount a fabricated crime scenario and wait to see if the suspect relates. And what do you think happens when they start to relate? They often begin to reveal similarities or differences in their own actions, sometimes even unprompted. This technique taps into associative memory and narrative identity. The suspect connects with the story and responds with her own, seeking validation. In forensic psychology, it's critical to understand that the environment and perceived audience affect confession content. It's the same thing with you. You would tell a different story of the same situation to your mom than you would to your best friend. It may generally be the same story, but when you're telling it to your mom, it's going to be a toned down version probably. Same thing here. A confession made to a judge or police officer will differ greatly in tone, detail, and motivation compared to one made to a perceived peer. Psychologists evaluating these statements must consider psychological state, context, and motivational dynamics. The Perkins Operation is kind of like a psychological chess match. It leverages trust, isolation, ego, and emotional vulnerability to extract information in a way that feels organic to the suspect. Although it's technically legal, its ethical grayness invites debate. Now in the comments, if you didn't see this video, would you be able to spot the undercover cop in the cell with you? Let everyone know in the comments below. Subscribe for more. After watching this video, as well as maybe my interrogation manipulation video, you may be realizing that police have a lot of tools up their sleeve. So many more videos to come on these psychological interrogation secrets. See you next time.